Hey, Jason Seiden. I'm in California this week because it's July, so I'm living my whole life. Parents survive a mass shooting, I get married, now I'm on vacation or change of scenery, however you want to look at it. It's a lot going on. This week I want to talk for a few minutes about disagreement. Something really interesting happened to me a few days ago. Post July 4th, you can imagine there's been a lot of online chatter from folks with Highland Park, and a friend of mine, well, a lot of it is, what are we gonna do about guns? So a friend of mine, CEO of a company, posted, look, there's no room here for assault weapons like this. And cue the very typical response thread. And it made me want to cry. It was awful. And I got caught up in it. At one point, I was like, I responded to somebody talking about wanting to defend themselves. I'm like, it's an assault weapon. It's kind of right there in the name that it's not for defense. And I got flamed. Not for saying it's an assault weapon, but people thought I thought that AR and AR-15 stood for assault rifle. I'm like, I'm not having a semantic conversation, but apparently you are, right? So I wanted to cry. I was talking to Lisa about it, and I'm like, it dawns on me that we're on totally different emotional levels. Like none of us have the same intellectual understanding of the issue, and I think we kind of get that as a society. Like everybody knows, growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, there's no place where you're gonna go and, fire an AR-15 and not hit somebody or something, But if you're in the mountains of Montana, you could go outside and you could shoot. Like it's a different world, but that's up here. Emotionally, you've got people here who, like me, I have kids. I've lost a kid. I know how awful it is to deal with death, but with these weapons, it's not even the body count. I actually think we do ourselves a disservice reporting body count. What I just witnessed was the cascading levels of trauma that these events create. My friends live in this town, so I've heard about the stains on the street. I have heard about, I got my parents, I know how traumatic the triage tent was. If you're a soldier, you train to not react when you see death and bodies in horrible positions. As civilians, we don't train for that. And yet my parents had to see it. A lot of people had to see it. That's traumatic, and that's gonna be around for a while. I am 2 degrees away from people who babysat that 2-year-old who lost their parents. From pretty much everybody who was shot, I am no more than 2 degrees removed. I mean, this is traumatic, and body counts don't convey that trauma. So I realized, if somebody else is coming to this and they're like, hey, look, I live in a part of the country where this is, it's gun culture, and we're responsible users, and I don't have kids, and I've never been, they're up here, and a lot of us are coming to this, and we're coming from here. And I'm like, you know what? In every other area of my life, that's never worked, where you have somebody coming to something intellectually and somebody else hitting it emotionally. It's just never led to a good or any outcome. And I thought to myself, I wonder if it's possible to build a bridge here and maybe close that emotional gap. And so turn this disagreement from a reason to hate each other to just a cause to come together and solve, right? Can I move my chair and sit at the same side of the table as somebody and work the problem together? And to do that, I figured I got to close this emotional gap. So I took a risk. And one of the guys in the thread, Jake Seeley, I got his permission to use his name, and I really wanted to because I give him so much credit for what happened. But I looked at his LinkedIn profile, and I'm like, he's in marketing, and he is a snowboarder, and he loves peanut butter. I'm like, Jake, I am an avid peanut butter guy. I ski, love downhill winter sports. Marketing, I am a huge proponent of ABM, just like you. Maybe for 1 minute before we go back, you and I could probably script the debate that we're about to have online, but can we just see each other for a minute and connect? And he did. He wrote back. He's like, absolutely, thank you for this. And we had a quick back and forth. I introduced him to Be Happy Peanut Butter, so appropriately named. It's out of Indiana. If you haven't had Be Happy Peanut Butter and you're a peanut butter person, I highly recommend. But then we took the conversation into direct messages. And you know what? We don't disagree to a point where we want to slaughter each other. we disagree on some fundamental principles, but it got real respectful real fast. And it just gave me a lot of hope, you know? And that's probably one of the hardest areas to come together. And it's something that I'm trying in all areas of my life. You know, look, I'm a dad, you know, I get in trouble for this all the time. I'll just sort of say something and I'll have a teenager look at me and just get real frustrated real fast because they're in a more emotional spot than I am about the issue. It never works. It doesn't matter which side you're on. It just doesn't work to put together somebody who's looking at something emotionally and somebody who's looking at it intellectually. So from a disagreement standpoint, all the tips and tricks and tools and everything that I've ever used, I'm realizing at this point where we are as a society, where I am in my life, the number one thing that I'm trying to focus on is to build a bridge, to make sure that I can relate, just get on the same emotional level with the people I'm talking to and go from there. And a lot of these issues resolve themselves. A lot of little ones resolve themselves when I do that. And the big ones, I just got evidence, they become much more manageable when we do that. So kind of a big one, but really, really important given what's going on. That's all I got. I love you. I'll see you next week.